Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years, offering routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures by their highly trained and experienced staff. Visit them online at canandaiguadentistry.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here with you. It's a pretty decent day overall. Yankees clinch a playoff spot. The Mets got a couple games in hand over Atlanta in their playoff hunt. All is pretty much well across the board, but some things to definitely get into and discuss. Kyle, good to see you. How have things been this week for you?
It's been good. I've been seeing a lot of winning from both sides. You know, obviously the Yankees are my team, but I watch every Mets game. They've been playing really well. And the vibes, I think, in New York with the baseball teams are just probably better than expected. And then I know you don't want to hear this, but if they can somehow get their Giants going a little bit.
Oh, boy.
Somehow get their Jets going a little bit. Maybe the city will have a good fall. On hand. I don't know about the Giants ever getting going. I do think the Jets still have a possibility, not being great, but, decent.
Yeah, hey, I mean...
And hockey starting.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like hockey is the bigger key point there. Then obviously you get the Knicks rolling, and I don't know what to expect out of the Nets this year, but that's a discussion for a different podcast. But, yeah, either way... You mean I wouldn't mind? Don't like hearing. I don't care. I'm a sad Commanders fan. I just ride my whole world, and we'll take 7 field goals and get a win. But anyway, let's jump into this. Kind of mentioned right here off the top, right? Yankees clinched a postseason spot last night. Obviously not division, but they're in and locked in for October. First time in a year, obviously, since 2022 for the Yankees. Celebrations looked pretty fun last night. It's weird. I don't necessarily love when teams kind of celebrate just clinching a postseason spot the way they do now, even though a lot of it now, really, to be quite honest, is marketing stuff more than anything else. Here's looking at you, alcohol brands, as we know. But I thought it was pretty interesting, kind of, not to dissect a ton from it, obviously, but just kind of seeing the vibes from a lot of people. Kind of interesting. I thought seeing Glaber and Jazz kind of the way they were last night, if I'm being completely honest. But that just might be reading too much in between lines from previous stuff and everything like that. But I did enjoy the sentiment, though, from a couple different guys, but obviously from the leadership element of it, Aaron Boone saying obviously the job's not done yet, but let's enjoy the next couple hours here and get back to business today.
Yeah, I enjoyed it because you get to see their personalities and, them just having fun. And, I get the point that, a lot more teams make it nowadays with the extra wild card team. And, I also think it's very tough, though. This season's a 162-game season. In order for things to go well, you have to have guys healthy. You have to produce all year. So I feel like it is still tough to get a postseason spot. But, it's the Yankees. It's expected. I do kind of wish they would have waited for the division title. But, again, I enjoyed what I saw, and I thought the vibes are great. Jazz was live on Instagram all night. He even got Judge on camera, and Judge kind of ran away, shied away because he was getting drunk.
Yeah.
Luke Weaver is just crazy. Alex Verdugo was going nuts. Everyone was involved. Yeah. Even Jason Dominguez came over, and he had John Birdie come over. Just guys you don't see every day and don't see their personalities. So I loved it.
Yeah, it was pretty great. All right, let's transition over to some on-the-field stuff here. Maybe a little bit off the field, technically as well. We're going to go back a little bit here, a couple days, and then get back forward. Do want to start with the Red Sox stuff. Big series pickup there, obviously, 3 out of 4 games. But some of the stuff kind of gets overshadowed by the intentional walk drama between Cole and Devers, to throwing behind with Brian Bayo of Aaron Judge and his comments, and Alex Cora saying they were looking to bean Judge and then not getting any punishment from that. It's one of those crazy things that I don't know on what other, I guess, professional league you can kind of get away with saying stuff like that. I especially coming off the heels a little bit of what we saw with Edwin Uceda of the Rays and Nick Castellanos of the Phillies a week or so ago now at this point. But either way, again, going back to something Boone brought up, right, we're kind of just going to move on from this and whatever. It's, likely won't see them again. But just more kind of drama kind of concocted from Alex Cora here. I think in the moment I was a little bit even hyped up a little bit. I know I was down at Watkins Glen all weekend for the NASCAR races, and even I got swept into it more than I probably should have in a weird way on Sunday after the Yankees won. I think as the weeks got on, I would definitely have cooled off from it, but I was interested to kind of hear your thoughts on the whole situation as well from that.
Yeah, I didn't like the intentional walk in that moment because he was throwing a no-hitter, looked dominant, and at least if you don't want to, really pitch to him, at least try to get him to chase. I mean, Devers was actually like 0 for 10 at that point, so he hadn't been like swinging it like crazy good like Judge has at some points this year. I just would have liked him to at least pitch to him, and then Alex Cora thinking that Devers got hit on purpose in the first inning of that game was crazy to me. It was the 5th pitch of the game, and it was an 0-1 cutter. I mean, are you serious? He was trying to throw up and in, and you really think he was trying to hit Devers? And then the whole thing with Judge getting mad because of that and throwing behind him, I don't understand that either. And if they're trying to chase their wild card spot, why are you going to put a guy on? That makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
You're trying to win every game as possible, but you're just going to put Judge on by hitting him?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. And since his comments, they're 1-2,
Yeah.
and they're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. It hasn't been a banner week for people tied to the Houston Astros involving beanings, that's for sure. One other thing here to kind of talk, I guess, about the Yankees before we kind of really get into a couple updates on some guys here and stuff like that, specifically involving, at this point, Anthony Volpe. I don't think it's any secret, right, that he's been, like I said off air to you, Kyle, like struggling might be a little bit of an understatement, but, really, you kind of sent a stat my way that kind of opened up my eyes. And I mean, he's not league worst for qualified batters, but being second or third worst in some categories is not exactly great by any means. Again, I don't want to take away from the vibes of the podcast here by framing it this way, but the Yankees have kind of been in this weird state of shortstops now for the better part of a decade, trying to kind of figure out the position and what ways to kind of go forward here. And I know Volpe is a second-year guy, right? He's young. He's still trying to get his reps in, but it's hard not to at least have the eyebrow raised on him at this point. And his struggles, obviously, at the plate and hitting as we've gone on. He was really a bright spot, right, the first couple months of the year, but since then it's been more or less a black hole with him at the plate.
Yeah, he's really not giving anything offensively. I mean, he couldn't even get a bunt down last night that would have moved the runner to third. That run in the 10th, that second run is always big. Verdugo ended up hitting a fly ball, which would have brought that second run home. Mm-hmm. So it's just very frustrating what you're seeing. I think it's good, though, I guess, that he's still making plays at short. We've seen with Glaber all throughout his career, when he struggles at the plate, he takes that to the field.
Yeah.
Well, Volpe, you would never know he struggles at the plate because he's still making the plays and he's still having fun. And I mean, his celebration last night was just as good as Jazz. He was, you could tell he was pretty hammered eventually. I mean, I'm frustrated. I would like to see at least some kind of production, at least get on base, because then you can use your speed. But he just hasn't, and his chase rate is He's just I think that's what's happening. He's chasing pitches and he's falling behind in the count early, and then he can't hit that off speed stuff.
Yeah.
And that's killing him. And he has to learn that, just stay relaxed. You need to try to just get on base, especially where you're hitting in the lineup. It's basically, sometimes he's hitting ninth, eighth. Yeah, just be that bottom of the order guy to get on, so the top of the order when it flips over can bring you in.
Yeah.
I think somebody needs to kind of like sit down with him and explain to him, stop trying so hard, just be patient.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say maybe the return of the chicken parm, but it's tough, right? Because I mentioned he's a second-year guy, and he's now part of, like I said, it's been a weird run since Derek Jeter retired for the Yankees, obviously, right? I think I was one of the people who thought it was Didi Gregorius, right, the future, when they brought him over. And for a couple of years, looked really awesome and everything, and then the Yankees decided to go in a different direction, and it's one of those things where I don't know how much. Oh wow, sorry, I didn't mean to get distracted. I saw we got like a millipede centipede thing over on the wall there, or whatever they're called. Anyway, it's tough, right? Like I don't want to do the whole entire how much runway does he have at this point type thing, because look, we're at the end of September. I would imagine the Yankees probably even give him, de facto all of next year. I don't know how much time realistically the Yankees can leave or give Volpe when, I mean, everything kind of looks like Jordi Vivas is the real deal as well at this point, hanging out in the minor leagues, AAA. There's also a couple of guys even behind Vivas, right? So I don't know what the exact future holds for Volpe as it stands right now.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. I do think they'll still give him more time to see what he can do, but yeah, the way it started off, you thought this was going to be the season that, he showed up and showed out and showed the organization that he's going to be their future for a long time, and then this has happened. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I hope he can somehow give something in the postseason. Like I said, even if it's just getting on base via a walk and then, using his speed to create chaos. I mean, we see it with Jazz.
Yeah.
We saw it with Jason Dominguez last night. They just use your speed if you're not going to be able to hit consistently.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they need to focus on.
But also, too, I think, to this end, and you brought it up, right? He's doing a really great job of not letting him affect himself on defense, and maybe that's just where the Yankees know that they can really just allow him to shine as in the field at this point, right? Kind of highlight more on the strength and not the weakness here as the pressure gets amped up a little bit more. All right, let's get some updates here on some players here. Start with DJ LeMahieu. Received a cortisone injection in his right hip last Thursday, a week ago today. Still unclear whether he returns this season. Aaron Boone says you never know, but also says don't count on it. So more or less that portion of it stays the same. Cortisone is always weird. It makes me feel like that pushes the player to nearing a return of some sort. But the way it sounds, it's more or less just for LeMahieu's own probably personal living situation, as I would call it at this point, and not actually getting on the field in this situation.
Yeah, I think there's no way we see him. There's 10 games left. He hasn't even done anything on the field since the cortisone stuff. No batting practice. So, and then they have John Birdie, excuse me, who scored. Last week he scored 2 of the walk-off wins. They pull him off the bench as the pinch runner with speed, and he delivers. I mean, I just don't see a fit for LeMahieu on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, but we've seen Birdie do that now. At least it feels like twice a week, give or take, right? So, those things are, like I said, like you said, and like we've been saying, I don't know where the fit is at that point anyway. All right, JT Brubaker made a rehab start with AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre over the weekend. Aaron Boone says he could be in the mix in the final days of the season here. I don't know exactly what that would mean. Maybe it's kind of a deal where the Yankees clinch the AL East. They clinch the 1 seed, and they kind of just slot him in the rotation to give a guy an extra day. Maybe it's in the bullpen. I don't know, but kind of sounds like he might be in the mix here to at least do something in the final days of the season.
Yeah, I don't really know where he fits. I've kind of said this all along. I mean, there's still some guys in the bullpen that I don't see that are going to be on the postseason roster, which is Tim Meza. I cannot believe
No,
he's still
yeah.
there. Mark Leiter Jr., I know he was a trade deadline acquisition, but a serious conversation will be had about how he's not trusted right now, and he has been awful.
Yeah.
6 ERA. I mean, we haven't even seen him in high leverage spots anymore, and he actually hasn't even been used a whole lot.
I was about to say that's the main thing with him, right? It's like we just really haven't seen him in the better part of
I can't even remember.
really 3 weeks, give or take.
He might have gone in that blowout, or not blowout, but the 7-1,
Yeah.
the Garrett Cole game.
Yeah.
I think he came in and when it was kind of,
Pretty
out of
done,
reach.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just don't see how you're gonna. I mean, the postseason's usually all about high leverage spots or very high pressure situations. Are you gonna trust Mark Leiter Jr., who's proven over and over again that he can't do it?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. And speaking of trying to figure out situations for guys, Cody Poteet, close to a major league return per Aaron Boone. Again, don't know where he exactly fits at this point with that. And then a pretty interesting thing with Lou Trevino occurred last week, mutually agreeing with the team to extend his rehab assignment 10 days more. That was as of last Friday. That would, in theory, put him obviously early next week if he were to be activated. It's just one of those things I found it pretty interesting. Rarely do you see a player and team kind of agree to something like that. What that tells me is he's still probably trying to figure something out mechanically speaking. It's just pretty interesting to kind of see both sides say we need to extend this deal out.
Yeah, I think if they are going to pull Tim Meza from the pen, I think he'd be the guy that would slot in. Or I'm wondering what they're going to do in the postseason because, again, they're not going to need all their starters. So they're going to have guys that could pitch out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
Are they going to, for example, keep Stroman in the bullpen? Or are they going to, it's very, you can only have so many bullpen spots. There's going to probably be 9 guys. They already got a majority of them filled, maybe 2 spots that are open. I'm just curious to see how they're going to manage that all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we've seen, obviously, Nestor, albeit once, come out of the bullpen. Stroman come out of the bullpen last night, even. So, it was last
2 nights ago.
Oh, it was 2 nights ago? See, now I'm getting my nights confused. But either way, so it's going to be interesting to kind of see, like you said, how it kind of all shakes out. So the Yankees already clinched a series win against Seattle, but they're looking to get a sweep later on today with that. And then heading to Oakland for 3 games, the final 3 games for the Yankees at the Oakland Coliseum. If you're a baseball sickos like me, kind of one of those things that I don't know if it's necessarily must-see TV, but it'll be your last chance of probably seeing them in Oakland, although who the hell knows what's going on with that as it stands right now, because I don't know if you've seen, Kyle, but apparently Sacramento might actually not be happening now. So who the hell knows what's going on there. And then Yankees get a travel day on Monday and then return home and have 3 pretty big games against the Baltimore Orioles next week. So kind of the Yankees have done what they've needed to do for the most part here in the past week. I feel confident saying they get a sweep. I don't know if have they announced the lineup yet for today?
Around 1 o'clock.
Okay, so we'll know then for sure who will be in the lineup and where, depending upon maybe how a couple guys are feeling, obviously, after last night, especially if it's Falpy's first official hangover, as we're going to call it. I'll go ahead and say they probably unfortunately lose today. I'll play the safe route of being in that type of shoe before. I think they win the series in Oakland, and then it will be interesting to kind of see how this thing with Baltimore plays out. I think they'll take the series against Baltimore at this point. I feel pretty confident saying that, but I'm pretty intrigued to see how that series actually plays out when we get to it next Tuesday.
Yeah, I could probably see them losing today. They usually just don't do good in the series finale, and then they've won the first 2. The whole partying last night. Logan Gilbert too is going to be tough.
Yeah.
All their pitching's been tough in this series, but the thing too, it's not only a division; they're also trying to get the number 1 seed in the AL, and the Guardians are ahead by a game and a half. So, there's a lot more that's still going on. I mean, these games are still very big. I'll say they do beat Baltimore, and I think they officially clinch the East. I'll say Wednesday night against Baltimore. The magic number 6.
Yeah.
It could be done as early as Sunday, but I don't think the Yankees are going to win every game, and I don't think the Orioles are going to lose every game.
Correct.
Although the Orioles are 3-9 in their last 12 and are probably going to get swept by the Giants today.
Yeah.
They have been so bad. I don't know how you can even be confident in that team.
Head Krimble had to take the sword, even.
Yeah.
Although that's probably a long time coming.
And then guess what they get? The Orioles next. The hottest team in baseball, the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who are only a half game out.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, I think they're going to get in over the Twins.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of, and I not to get too off topic with that, but because of some ties of where I went to college and everything, I'm kind of rooting for the Tigers anyway to make it. I've seen a lot of those guys play over the course of the past couple of years with Erie, their Double-A team, when I've gone back. So it's kind of been nice seeing the baby kitties do pretty well here down the stretch. So let's get to the Mets here. They've stayed for the most part pretty hot. They obviously lose the series to the Phillies, and
they shouldn't have.
Exactly, maybe, but also not exactly what they were looking for. But bouncing back and sweeping the Nationals is exactly what they were supposed to do. And that's one of those things where we talk about it a ton through this past year, right? About how you go out there and you do what you need to do against the teams you're supposed to do. And, frankly, in any level of baseball, teams maybe take a bit of a dent and lose a little bit of that confidence and go out there and lose a game or two that they aren't supposed to. But I took it as a pretty good sign of the team that they were able to, frankly, just bounce back and especially 2 out of the 3 games just handle business against a team that they should have handled business against in the Nationals.
Yeah, and outscore them 20-1 over the final 2 days. Yeah. I mean, like I said last week, this needed to be a sweep. Their schedule coming up is brutal. I know the vibes are great, but if you look at the schedule and you look at the Braves schedule and you look at where things stand, the Mets should not be comfortable or it's going to come back and hurt them.
Right.
This 2-game lead is not going to be good because they play the Braves.
Correct.
They play the Brewers. They play the Phillies. I mean, these games are tough.
Yeah. I think it's still a pretty big deal they got 2 in the hand on Atlanta as it stands right now. But it's not like it's this ginormous safety net, obviously, by any means, right? I mean, look, there's only 10 games, 10 days, however you want to look at it, left in the season, right? But a lot can change in that span. We've seen crazier things happen than a two-game advantage get evaporated, right?
Yeah, and they play head-to-head, so that's what I mean. And they go and lose that series, and guess who the Braves get next? They play the Reds today for getaway day.
Yep.
They go to Miami.
Yeah.
The Mets are getting Philadelphia. This could, by Sunday night,
It is the frisky fish, though, recently.
the Mets could be out of a wild card. That's what I mean. It's not safe. The vibes can be so great, but things are not safe with the Mets.
Yeah, very much so true there. If there is any sort of solace or whatever, you have a chance at redemption, though, against the Phillies starting tonight. It's a 4-game series. It's at home this time. Obviously, you cannot, and this plays into maybe a little bit of talking ahead here once we get to it with them, but they can't lose the series this time. I would say worst case scenario is you do a true 2-2 split, and even then, I don't view that as a successful weekend for the team. Now, again, this might play a little bit ahead here to stuff we talk about in just a second. Seems like Francisco Lindor is going to be back at some point this series against the Phillies. As it stands right now, I don't think it's going to be tonight. Could be wrong. I mean, he might be doing what he needs to do workout-wise right now, and we just don't know it. But it sounds like you'll get him back. Luis Angel Acuna looks pretty good, all things considered, for a guy that they weren't expecting to probably be up at all this year. It's one of those things where if you're the Mets, you got to go out and you frankly have to play the best baseball you've played all year in this next 4 days, in my opinion, against the Phillies. That parlays you to this Brave series midweek next week, or, well, technically early next week, that's on the road. It's a big, like, it'd be a big series anyway if it was at Citi Field, but it is a even bigger series in my mind, the fact that it's on the road against Atlanta. So for me, they have to set themselves up for success with this Phillies series. You're 7 games back of the Phillies right now for the division, right? And like we're saying, crazier things have happened, but odds are you aren't going to catch the Phillies, barring a colossal collapse by them in this final week of the year after you get done this weekend with them, right? So you have to set yourselves up for success in this Philly series to go against Atlanta in Atlanta early next week.
Yeah, Phillies have dominated the Mets as of late, 7-3 in their last 10, dating back to last year. It's going to be really tough. And the Braves, yeah. The good thing about today is they're going to know going into their game tonight if the Braves had won or lost,
Correct.
because they play at 1 o'clock. And then just kind of looking ahead, jumping way ahead, actually, to the Brewers series. They already clinched their division. Mm-hmm. I'm just kind of thinking, what they're going to be playing for. They are still alive for the number 1 seed. The Phillies do have a 3-game lead, but like if the Mets take care of the Phillies, take 3 of 4, then that lowers that chance. So I don't know. The Brewers might not have something to play for.
Correct.
In that final series doesn't mean they're still not going to be very tough to beat.
Right.
So yeah, this is probably a make or break series for the Mets. I would say.
Yeah.
Because even today, if the Braves win their afternoon game, the Mets lose. It's a 1-game difference, just like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, you can't. The safety net you have isn't really a safety net. This is what we're kind of more or less saying here. So, all right, let's get into some of these updates on guys. Francisco Lindor, we mentioned, dealing with some back tightness. He's missed the past 3 straight games. The good news, more or less, was on Monday when his MRI came back clean on his back. There was no issues deeper there. Carlos Mendoza, though, has said that he is going to need to do a full slate of baseball activity, workout kind of stuff in order to get back into the lineup. The initial plan coming out of the weekend was somewhere in the 2 to 5 day range. We're at day 4, technically, of that now. So, in theory, should be back at some point this weekend against the Phillies. Just a matter of when, and kind of like we were alluding to, just he has to go through this regimen first before he can actually get back in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be nice getting him back, but at the same time, Luis Angel Acuna was terrific. He went 7 for 15, hit 2 home runs, drove in runs. I thought played shortstop pretty well except for one play, he dropped the ball at second. So yeah, I mean, they've missed Lindor, but at the same time, they haven't. They swept the Nationals, and their shortstop Acuna filled in nicely.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to kind of see. I don't know if they'll keep him up next week, but even though Ronald is out, it would be interesting having the brothers be on opposite sidelines next week. So
True.
Anyway, Paul Blackburn, update on him. Turns out he had a spinal fluid leak in the middle of his back, kind of giving him all the issues that he had with his back. So this dates back to last Thursday. They shut him down for 4 days, has since thrown a bullpen. The plan for him as it stands right now is get him back to a point where he can come out of the bullpen and work there. It's kind of weird. Obviously, I'm not a medical guy, or else I wouldn't be probably sitting in this chair right now. Kind of sounds like a spinal fluid leak would be a pretty big deal in a way. Could be wrong, but I just feel that's a pretty big deal. But at least there's an answer for what was kind of plaguing Blackburn, and they're on a path officially now to get him back into some sort of active service on the team.
Yeah, he said his fluid leak felt like a compressing Pepsi can. That's how he described it to the media. And he had 10 PRP injections. So that's why he's back and being able to throw a bullpen, because now he feels no pain. But 10 PRP injections.
Yeah.
You wonder how long it's going to last, if there's any setback, if he starts feeling pain again. So you can't really count on this guy to come back, but it is good news that he's able to throw a bullpen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. It just sounds like way worse than it is, apparently. But, I don't know. Maybe it's just more an issue that they can't really solve unless they go, I don't know, under the knife maybe. I have no idea. It just sounds like kind of crazy that he has this deal and they can kind of just, all right, we have an answer, have some injections and go. I don't know. It's crazy. Some rougher news. We saw that he was kind of doing some work here the past couple weeks, but Christian Scott officially shut down. He's going to be having the hybrid surgery on his elbow, the combination of Tommy John with the internal brace. Miss, as they're calling it, more than likely all of 25 next season. It will probably be all of the season, obviously, but something that they were hoping to avoid. They unfortunately will not be able to avoid with one of their top pitching prospects.
Yeah, it looked like he was pushing and pushing to come back, and then we hear this news. I guess not really surprised, but I was like, oh, wow, I thought he was going to be able to get back.
Yeah. So also in the PRP injection department here, Kyle, Daniil Nunez received one for his right flexor tendon, but they're shutting him down for the remainder of the season. So Nunez out for the rest of the year there. Here's the interesting news, though, that I picked up here. Kodai Senga, he's hoping that he'll be able to throw an inning or so with AAA Syracuse this Sunday. It would be the final game of the year for the AAA season and the minor league season, and that would set him up to rejoin the active roster for the Mets next week. It's pretty interesting. That gives me the vibe they're kind of maybe planning on using him in the same way of maybe Paul Blackburn in a way, but we at least have an answer as to how the Mets and Kodai Senga would be going about a rehab assignment of sorts to make him available here for the final few days of the year.
Yeah, that's a big arm to get back. I always questioned all along. I didn't think he was going to have the time, but clearly he's probably not going to be, giving you 5-6 innings as a starter. He's going to give you, maybe a couple at most. But hey, his arm is better than nothing.
Right. So, just a couple other news and notes here. Pablo Reyes outrighted to AAA Syracuse. DJ Stewart was optioned back to AAA Syracuse. And obviously, as we mentioned, Luis Angel Acuna was recalled from AAA Syracuse. So, we've already alluded to it a ton here, previewing the next couple series for the Mets. So, we'll kind of skip over a little bit here. I do think the Mets, unfortunately, probably do a true split with the Phillies. Just kind of the vibe I get. I do think they get 2 of 3, though, from Atlanta, which will be huge. The Braves have given me a weird vibe, even though they've, frankly, have been winning the games they need to kind of win at this point. I just think for the Braves, they get to the next week and they realize where they are in the standings. I don't know if that's going to mess with them mentally, but that's just kind of the vibe I get. So I think the Mets are able to kind of at least get business done against the Braves, and we'll call it tread water against the Phillies.
Yeah, I think they're going to lose 3 or 4 to the Phillies.
Ooh.
But then I think they take 2 of 3 from the Braves. Still doesn't mean they will be in first place because, say the Braves go and sweep their next opponent, the Marlins, they'll be in first. So yeah, the Phillies have owned them for a while, and their pitching is too good, I think, for the Mets.
Mm-hmm. All right, so unfortunately, we'll end our podcast with obviously Rochester and Syracuse. Both teams officially have been eliminated from postseason contention. 37 and 34 for the Red Wings in the second half of the year. 29 and 42 for the Mets. Things didn't go as great down the stretch for either of those two teams, but Rochester was actually able, with a win last night, to clinch an overall winning record of the year. So that's pretty big for them. We've seen incremental improvement the past couple of years with them. So that's pretty big there. Both are home this week for the final series of the year. Rochester has Iowa, the Cubs affiliate, and Syracuse has Charlotte, the White Sox affiliate. Pretty interesting there. Didn't realize that until I said that out loud. They got the Chicago affiliates in town. Red Wings, Tyler Stewart placed on the 7-day injured list. Dazen Acosta, right-handed pitcher assigned from AA Harrisburg. C.J. Stubbs, a catcher also assigned from AA Harrisburg. And Adonis Medina was placed on the 7-day injured list as well. For the Mets, Jonathan Pintaro, right-hand pitcher assigned from AA Binghamton. Mike Brasso was placed on the 7-day IL. Chet Williams, assigned from AA Binghamton. One of the top prospects, getting a couple of weeks here to, he was called up last week, tail end of last week. Finish the season with the AAA ball club, where he'll probably start next year. And then Brett Beatty activated off the injured list yesterday. They were worried they weren't going to get him for the rest of the year when he broke his finger, but he'll get a couple games to wrap up the year with AAA Syracuse. So hopefully, I know it's going to be a really nice weekend again around the area. I know I'm going up to Rochester on Saturday night for one more ball game in person, so hopefully everybody else can as well.
My takeaway from all the stuff you just said is, man, Syracuse Mets have been an embarrassment in the second half. I mean, you look, they're dead last in the East. You combine the West teams, too. They're just ahead of Louisville, who's god-awful as well. Sucks to see because Syracuse had a pretty good first half, and, they've collapsed. Not great. And their run differential, man, -63. Wow. So you can probably, it looks like they're having trouble scoring runs mostly, but yeah, the pitching hasn't been good either.
Yeah.
Brutal.
It hasn't been the second half of the year that the Mets obviously hoped for there. So, all right, that'll do it for Concrete Jungle for this week. We'll be back at it again next Thursday, previewing and recapping the final week of the year. Hopefully at that point we'll have a clear picture for both teams and maybe do a little bit more of the extended outlook for these teams for the postseason. But until then, you have to make sure you watch some baseball here. It's the best time, well, one of the best times of the year in terms of that. I know weather-wise for me it's not because we're into the fall, but you can't beat the heightened pressure of nearing the postseason for baseball. So can't be beat. We'll be back, like I said, next Thursday. So until then, appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. We'll talk next week.